true. This is a strong message. I completely agree. You shouldn't kill people that bully you. I completely agree. Oh, I love strong women. Yes. It's bad. What do you want me to say? What do you mean? What do you mean, bro? Okay, so not so erudite. This is not so erudite. Not so erudite is she does like pop psychology content, I guess. She does like a lot of like MRA shit, I guess you could call it. She talks a lot about men's issues, this, that, and whatever the fuck, you know, that's kind of like her thing. She's Destiny's like #1 writer, following the allegations that came out against Destiny. But either way, she has a bachelor's degree in I think it's psychology. And then she also worked as a psychometrist, which is somebody who administers psychological tests. So if you've ever done like an IQ test, if you've ever done any kind of assessment, so like I'm trying to think of a few off the top of my head that require a psychometrist. I know or a psychometrician. It's kind of like how optometrist and ophthalmologist are like two different things, but everybody just says optometrist, even though somebody might actually be an ophthalmologist. It's like one of those things. One of them makes psychological tests, the other one administers psychological tests. So she has a BA, and then she has a graduate certificate in psychological assessment. So she doesn't have like a master's degree or anything like that, but she does have a graduate diploma in administering psychological tests. And so something that's just something that she relies heavy on is her experience and kind of her background, like working in the field. She also did substance use disorder, SUD therapy as well, and then I want to say that she also did Christian counseling as well. So she's got a little bit of all that stuff going on, but she doesn't have a master's degree. It's a graduate certificate program. It's like you do like a training, and you basically they say that you're allowed to do these kinds of things. It's not a master's level program or anything like that, but she talks a lot about psychology, and she talks a lot about men's issues and blah, 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 that kind of stuff. Very, very disillusioned to the plight of men, unfortunately, but she lives to talk about it. Also, something to kind of like lay the groundwork here. Adolescence is a show on Netflix. It's a limited series that came out. Everybody was mad. Apparently, it's based on a real-life case, and in the real-life case, the person that's a murderer was actually like a black immigrant, but they race-swapped the character. So everybody was like, "Oh my God, they're hating white people, or they're trying to get like white people in trouble." You know, it's the anti-white woke shit or whatever. I don't know. I don't know anything about the in real-life case, but basically, if you don't want spoilers, there's going to be spoilers not only in this video, and then also the synopsis that I'm about to give you. So, basically, Adolescence is a show, and it follows this young guy. His name is Jamie in the show. He's 13 in the show, and Jamie killed his female classmate. And he killed his female classmate because he was like into the red pill manosphere shit, basically. This girl was calling him an incel. She was saying, you know, that he's ugly. They talk a lot about the 80-20 split. The 80-20 split is basically the idea that 80% of women are only attracted to 20% of men, and everybody else has to all go fuck themselves, right? Like only like the buff, Chad, alphas are the ones that are getting girls. Everybody else is fucked. It's nature. You know, it's just like how women are. And stuff like that. And so she's talking specifically about episode 3 of Adolescence. And in the 3rd episode, a psychologist, like a court evaluator, goes in basically to interview the kid. And the person who's interviewing him happens to be a woman. And so you see a lot of different things in that episode. And by the way that the show is filmed is absolutely fucking beautiful. It's filmed in one continuous shot. There are no cuts in any of the episodes. It's filmed so well. So well. Okay, I recommend. But anyway, so while he's being evaluated by this evaluator, the evaluator is asking him all these questions about, like, how do you feel about women? Like, tell me about your dad. Like, what do you think of your dad? Like, what do you think makes your dad like a man? Like, what does it mean to be a man? Tell me about masculinity. Like, how do you feel when other people degrade you in your masculinity? How do you feel when women do that specifically? And you see a lot of like, how do I explain this? A lot of the misogyny is just like coming off of this kid in the way that he talks, the way that he tries to posture, the way that he like is engaging in property destruction to try and control the situation. You know, he talks about how this girl was getting picked on essentially for being a whore because she like pictures of her boobs like went around or whatever and he was like, well, everybody thought she was a whore, so I asked her out because nobody else would that maybe she would want to date me. And so the court evaluator is like, okay, so your logic here is that her standards were low enough that she would go for you. So it's really, really good. It's a really, really good episode, and the show itself is really good. So this is what we're talking about. And mind you, again, Not So Erudite has experience, or has at the very least worked in the field of psychology, has a degree in psychology. So you should be expecting really good big brain takes from Not So Erudite, but I have really bad news, you guys. I feel like that's not going to be the case. And I have not pre-watched. I made DZ watch this before me. So so let's just see how we're going to go. Okay, guys?
To be clear, kind of the premise of everything that we have to talk about is a big spoiler for the show. So if you don't want spoilers, I tell you now, spoiler, don't watch this. I will be clear, though. The acting in this show is so good. So good. The cinematography, so good. Leila, episode 3 is the best one. I don't think episode 3 was like all bad. I think there were some really good parts, like especially the boys wrestling. But I was very underwhelmed by the way that they wrote The Psychologist, I think specifically. Is the show based or is it not based? Also,
I just want to say really quickly, the way that the show is written is actually really fucking good. That's actually pretty ideally exactly the kind of shit that you want from court evaluators. That's actually exactly how you want court evaluators to behave in interviews and assessment. But yeah. Nonetheless, let's keep going.
I think a lot of incel people that are angry over the race stuff is just kind of cringe. I just don't think that that's like the important part of the story, right? I think, for example, changing the race of like certain like fantasy characters can sometimes be meaningful and sometimes not. So is the show portraying boys primarily as victims or as the perpetrators? The show is showing both. If I'm being honest, my read of the show is that while the perpetrator is the young boy who's being bullied about manosphere stuff and does seem to have some more sexist views of women, but not like egregiously sexist. I would say really standard sexist, like especially working class sexist perspective.
No, because he kills her. He kills someone for rejecting him. I would not say that that's standard sexism. I would say that's pretty extreme sexism. And then also the way that he engages with the court evaluator demonstrates a really sophisticated level of sexism where posturing physical aggression and violence, especially towards an adult for a juvenile, is something that is like very sophisticated in the realm of sexism, right? There's a difference between a kid that might be a little bit sexist that doesn't listen as well to like a female teacher than they do a male teacher, but for a young male to posture aggressively towards an adult female, especially one in a position of authority over them, is pretty sophisticated sexism. That is pretty indicative of very, very, very much really aggressive misogynistic tendencies, especially, again, considering that in the show, he fucking kills the girl for rejecting him. He kills her. He stabs her to death. I would say that that's pretty fucking sexist. I don't know many blue-collar men who kill women. The working class view of sexism is like, make me a sandwich. You know, I work all day. My wife stays at home. My wife takes care of the house. My wife takes care of the kids. My wife, you know, does housekeeping, like quote unquote womanly duties. And then I go and I work all day. Or even like women can't do certain forms of manual labor, or even, you know, women are not as strong as men. Women can't be in positions of, you know, like either authority or like really physically demanding laborious positions. That's like working class sexism. And you could even say that like sexist jokes, even like get back in the kitchen, woman, or something like that. Like that's blue collar sexism, where it's, and you even see, like, the thing is like there, even when you have women that work in predominantly male fields, like think welding, kitchens, construction, anything like that, women that work in those fields, the kind of sexism that they get is subtle. It's very muted, right? They're not like, you're a dumb bitch, like you're a woman, like shut the fuck up. It's kind of like, oh, that's a really great point, I guess, but I think we're gonna go with what Greg said. But Greg said the same thing. It's very subtle. It's not direct. It's not aggressive, and it's not violent. Like that is not the kind of sexism or misogyny that you see in blue collar fields. This is like a very extreme form of misogyny and sexism, especially if you consider the age difference here between a 13-year-old and an adult court evaluator, and that he immediately postures with violence, and he does not see any kind of disparagement between his physical like dominance being 13 versus an adult woman who is in a position of authority over him. So yeah,
So like just really standard. But I'm saying that that's good for anyone freaking out, being like, it's not a good thing. I'm just saying this is what we should expect. I don't know if I'd be willing to like start flinging the word like incel at a 13-year-old boy, right? So
well, and so the other thing here that we fail to understand is that incel is more of like a philosophy, and it's not necessarily like, because I think that it's a fair assumption that 13-year-olds are celibate. I think that's a fair assumption, okay? But it's more so like the idea that incel as a colloquial term is just kind of blanketly used to attack men who are unable to get attention from women, whether it be social, sexual, or romantic, right? Like, girls don't like you, you're a freak. It's really weird that you haven't had a date. It's really weird that you've never had your first kiss, things like that. And that is the colloquial usage of an incel, right? Because there are certainly men who have had sex, men that can get sex, and men that are in intimate relationships, but can still colloquially be referred to as incels because they are rizzless, they don't have style, they don't have any kind of social skills, they're pretty awkward, they're kind of weird. Like, colloquially speaking, and the way that incel is used is it's used also to describe men who do have sexual experiences. Actual Jake is a really good fucking example of this. Actual Jake is like a textbook fucking walking example of an incel, but he's married. I think that incel still applies to him because he has that energy and that aura. You know what I mean? Incel is the new Discord moderator. Like, that's the new insult, right? And especially with young people often will use insults without even really truly understanding what they mean, right? Like, they hear adults use this language and then they reiterate this language. So this is one of the things that's concerning with young men, specifically that get indoctrinated into the red pill manosphere space, is that it is normal for, 13-year-olds, 12, 13, 14-year-olds to be celibate because they're not sexually active. That's normal. So I would say, why would it bother them that they're being called incels? Because obviously they're not engaging in sexual activity. It's because it's an archetype, right? It's an archetype of man who cannot get the attention of women in any positive kind of way. Okay, and again, that can be social, that can be sexual, that can be romantic. It's just a guy or a boy or a man that is unable to get attention or positive engagement from women. That's what that means. That's the colloquial usage of the word. Because if we're saying like this is the literal definition of an incel, obviously this doesn't fucking apply. And it's interesting, like, did she even watch the show? Because I think it's in like the first or the second, I think it's the second episode actually. I think it's the second episode. The cop specifically, like, they bring up the red pill incel shit to the cop. And the cop is like, what the fuck do you mean an incel? He's 13. Of course he's celibate. He's 13. What 13-year-old is not celibate? And it's the archetype. It's the predictive factor, right? You're 13, you're weird, you're kind of freaking the girls out. They don't really want to talk to you. Maybe you don't have any friends. Maybe you're kind of weird. You got weird hobbies or interests. You're going to be single forever. You're going to die a virgin. No girl is ever going to want to hang out with you or spend time with you. There's a reason none of the girls want to go to, the homecoming dance with you. It's because you're an incel. It's an archetype. It isn't always directly correlated to your ability to have sexual interactions with women. It's about the lack of affection and positive interaction that you get from women, right?
While he is the perpetrator, the whole story is analyzing him and his family and his brain to understand like what led him to doing this crime. There's actually very, very little time spent on the girl, probably for twofold. Number one, her bullying this boy doesn't justify him murdering her. Obviously, right? This is obvious.
True. This is a strong message. I completely agree. You shouldn't kill people that bully you. I completely agree.
There is no amount of bullying that suddenly makes physically assaulting and killing another person okay. This is obvious. Probably don't need to murder bad, okay?
And you're not wrong, Don't Smoke in Bed. They also address that as well, where the female investigator says specifically, she's like, this really frustrates me because people know his name. They know him. They're going to be talking about him. Everybody forgets about the girl. Like, even when a woman is the victim of a violent attack, a murder, an assault, a rape, anything like that, the focus is on the man. And that's what's frustrating, is that we're spending all this time, talking to him, trying to understand his psychology, understand his mind. But we have it on video. He fucking killed her. I don't know why we're wasting our time. We might not even ever understand why he did it, and why should it matter? He did it, and that's where it should stop. And I mean, they address all this in the show. So I think it was DZ. I agree. I don't think that she actually watched the fucking show.
But what's interesting is trying to get into the head of this kid and why he felt enough rage that he snapped and did this behavior. So here's episode 3.
I didn't like that bite. You guys see that bite? That was scary.
Head of this kid and why he felt enough rage that he snapped and did this behavior. So here's episode 3.
That's why he died. Jesus Christ. Sorry. My bad.
He's being interviewed by a forensic psychologist who's doing an independent review, basically of his psychology. She's trying to understand who he is and how he thinks, which I think is a really, really cool premise for a third episode.
It's not even, that can be part of it. So the one thing that a lot of people fail to understand is that you don't need motive. If you have tangible evidence that somebody did something, you don't need a motive. That's more to satiate people's, desire to want to understand, and then also build a narrative for a jury trial, right? If I am caught on video killing someone, my motives are not really even called into question. If it's clear cut, there was no self-defense, I didn't act in self-defense. In the show, they show that he was following her around town for, a few hours before he did this. There was no physical violence from her side. He just fucking killed her. It's all on video. The whole thing is there. The motive isn't really a needed component, okay? That isn't really a needed component for this to be a case, okay? The other thing that is important is that court evaluators do not give evaluations to determine this, that, and the other thing. Court evaluators are there to demonstrate if somebody is competent and culpable for their actions. Okay, that's the purpose of a court evaluator. If you have someone who is acting in a way that's kind of off, kind of odd, kind of strange, you have a 13-year-old boy who stabs a girl to death for apparently no fucking reason. The reason that you would employ a court evaluator or a court psychologist is to evaluate if they were in the right mind state and if there were any mitigating factors that might diminish their ability to understand what they were doing was wrong, right? That's the purpose of a court evaluator. So by understanding that there is a logic, a rationale, and rules to whatever this person chooses to do demonstrates competency, right? So if I commit a crime and I say, the people in the walls told me that if I didn't rob this liquor store at gunpoint and kill the owner, that the demons were going to crawl up from hell, pry my floorboards apart, crawl into my kneecaps, in my body, out my mouth, and then kill my entire fucking family. I had to do it. You don't understand. I had to save my family. They're going to be like, okay, so there's something else going on here. I don't even know if you knew what you were doing, right? Or if you have somebody who has diminished capacity for understanding right and wrong. You see a lot of this with, oh God, what's the word that I'm looking for? It's not nepotism. It's, what's that word? There's a word that means when people are so rich, they don't know what's right and wrong. It happened with that guy that was drunk driving, and, he was I think he was 18. He was super fucking drunk. He got in a car accident. He killed 6 people, and they let him off because he was rich. And he was I didn't know that you can do affluenza. Thank you. Affluenza, thank you. Where if you can demonstrate that somebody does not know that something is wrong. So for example, you have somebody who has either diminished mental capacity or they don't know the law, and you can prove that they truly did not know that something was right or wrong. Okay, that's diminished capacity. They didn't know, and so we're going to take that into consideration, right? If you the affluenza teen was one of the ones that I thought was kind of fucked up. But if you have somebody who just doesn't, they're oh, I'm actually really sorry. I didn't know that I couldn't have a gun with me if I went into this store. I wasn't trying to do anything. I just did not know that I could not carry a weapon in this area. I'm very sorry. That's taken into consideration, right? Your ability to be able to identify right from wrong is something that is taken into consideration with the court evaluation process. It's mostly, almost exclusively used to determine competency. And by demonstrating, by interviewing this kid, that one, he knew what he was doing was wrong. Two, that he had a justification in his mind to evaluate this is the right choice to make, weighing that against something that is wrong, and then understanding the psychology behind how this, like, basically manifested in his head as a reasonable thing to do, demonstrates competency, right? That's what this is doing, right? It's not necessarily to understand motive, and obviously this is for dramatic effect. This is a TV show, so part of it is probably so the audience can kind of understand, like, oh, that's why he did it, or I completely understand. Like, we have to remember this is a TV show, right? So there is going to be some component that doesn't entirely map onto a real process of a real court evaluation to determine competency in an individual. However, court evaluators are not there to determine motive, to determine guilt, to determine any of that. They are there to determine competency to stand trial. Does this person understand right from wrong? Was this person understanding reason, ration, right and wrong in the moment of committing the crime? Yes or no? That's what is the purpose of competency, right? Exactly. You need to be able to prove competence to stand trial and understand what he's being tried for as well, right? Like, you have to be able to demonstrate that this person knows what they did in order to punish them appropriately for whatever they did, right? So I'm kind of being pedantic as fuck. I'm sorry.
And it's 50 minutes. It's very long, but we'll see why Brain Pilot thinks that it's perfect. And maybe they'll convince me.
Is she going to watch this whole episode on stream? Is this not copyright?
Netflix's latest releases, and
never mind.
Talk shows that's out there at the moment. It jumped straight to #1 in the Netflix charts, and it provided a lot of talking points around the subject matter of the show with regards to incel.
It doesn't really say Buck Moon, and it's like a Netflix dramatization, so I don't even know. And it's in the United Kingdom, so I don't even know about the legal process in the United Kingdom. I don't know what it means to try somebody as an adult or as a juvenile. At least in the United States, that's going to depend on the severity of the crime and then, of course, competency, right? Because if you have somebody who is 15 years old who commits like a very egregious action and they're competent in themselves, they were aware that what they were doing was wrong, but they did it anyway, they can be tried as an adult, okay? So I don't know anything about the legal system in the United Kingdom, so I'm not sure. I would ask a Brit Bonger about that.
Cell culture, toxic masculinity, and the impact that your child being a murderer can have on the family. But also, there's been conversations about the way that this show was constructed, with Philip Barantini at the wheel with his signature single-take shots setting the tone, pace, and rhythm for this extremely interesting and dark show. Within the 4 episodes, there was one episode in particular that stood out to me, and it was the 3rd installment. An installment where there were only 4 characters that featured, and the intensity of a character profile being built for pre-sentencing was what the intention of it was. From phenomenal performances to an incredible use of sound.
She did do it. I would agree with you on that, Layla, yeah. In fact, I think I should be more clear. I think the portrayal of the psychologist was almost perfect, except for in 2 ways that I think only served to take away from her character, which I'll get into. Otherwise, I think that her character portrayal was really strong. I think she showed enough like rapport building and empathy.
Oh, I love strong women, yes.
While also making enough space for it to just be about him. There's just 2 things that I thought were disappointing to see written in.
To an ending that then left me in complete shock and feeling like all emotions had been drained from me. I wanted to discuss why this episode was simply perfect and explain why it's worthy of all of the praise.
Also, all the actors and actresses, I just want to say again, incredible. Her acting, incredible. The boys acting, incredible, incredible, incredible. Amazing acting. 50 minutes straight of just really...
Oh, yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's kind of slow. If you're wanting like a lot of action, I wouldn't watch this show. It's kind of slow if you like kind of like the psychological-esque stuff, but yeah, I mean, I liked it. It was pretty good.
Powerful and subtle acting. I love subtle acting. She's a really brilliant subtle actress too.
That it's been getting. So let's get into it. Here is why Adolescence episode 3 is perfect. Just to let you know, this video well contains a character that was at the center of this episode, and Erin Doherty delivered a phenomenal performance from start to finish. To be honest, I'd just come off the back of watching 1,000 Blows, and I half expected her to sound like a character that came from the East End, but instead she sounded very posh and proper. So in seeing that range,
it's posh, asshole.
Instantly made me feel like we were in for one hell of a performance. Erin Doherty, like Owen Cooper, went through a range of emotions in this episode with their character, but it was only at the end of it where we saw that her mask was let down and the emotional weight and turmoil of everything that she'd been through in just needing to be in a room with a killer, Jamie, got the better of her.
Well, and this is the pathology of what you want from a very, very good court evaluator. You want somebody who's completely able to detach and be non-reactive. Because if you look at any kind of pathology related to criminality, especially with violent crimes, how do people get out of that? How do people get out of any kind of situation that they don't want to be in? They're aggressive, right? How do you get people to back the fuck up off you? You're aggressive. You threaten, you posture, right? How do you get out of a conversation that you don't want to have? You crash out, you break things, you yell. People with violent tendencies are looking for a reaction to their outbursts in order to get whatever discomfort they're experiencing to stop, right? So this is actually the exact temperament that you want to see from somebody who is a good evaluator, somebody who is not reactive in any kind of way. It is able to move like right past that, right? There's a part in there specifically where there's two different crash outs where he gets really fucking mad, and it's almost performative, which is what you can kind of see from people who are trying to get out of things, right? When they're trying to get out of accountability, when they're uncomfortable, they might be explosive to try and get out of that, because if I freak out enough, everybody's going to leave me alone, right? So there's two scenes specifically where he does that. After the second one, he's sitting there and she's asking him these questions, and he's obviously getting uncomfortable. And so he starts saying, why are you scared of a 13-year-old? Isn't that kind of fucking embarrassing that you're scared of a 13-year-old? And she just keeps going. She doesn't acknowledge it. She doesn't engage with it. She doesn't react to it. She's not like, oh my God, I'm so scared. That's the exact kind of disposition and temperament that you need if this is the kind of job that you want to do. Because when people act like that, when people are explosive, what they want is a reaction and they want an escape, right? Because you don't say things to people to upset them just for fun. You say it because that reaction is reinforcing to you. If I make somebody mad and they react, that reinforces that I got what I want. I poked a nerve, right? I upset you. I got you to freak out. I'm in control. I dictate your emotions if I can get a reaction out of you, right? So I'm curious what she's going to say, but this is actually the exact kind of temperament that you want for somebody who is doing evaluations for people, especially violent criminals, right?
And she could finally release it all and let out what felt like the largest of metaphorical exhales. When looking at the start of the episode, she was smiley, friendly, and went out of her way to make Jamie feel comfortable in getting him his hot chocolate with marshmallows, even joking with him about their regional differences when it came to slices of bread and their backgrounds. But by the end of it, after she'd been intimidated not once, but twice, her whole demeanor was different, and we saw a more closed-off, stare-you-down approach, which ultimately...
Well, because, and again, this is something that will go into this as well, is that rapport building in very short bursts only goes so far. Okay, especially if you're there to have like a very serious, very direct like conversation with somebody, that rapport building only does so much. Because you have what, like 15 minutes to bullshit with somebody, and then it's like, okay, let's talk about how you cut this girl's head off. Let's talk about it. The tone's gonna shift. And I dislike the framing. I dislike the framing that it's, at first she was like pally and blah blah blah, and then she got really scared and she like shut down. It's like, no, she understood that approach wasn't working, right? She was like, obviously the friendly banter, the tee-hee-hees isn't gonna do anything here. Okay, we're exhibiting a lot of this stuff to kind of weasel around a lot of the questions. So let's switch gears and be more direct, right? I don't like the framing of that.
Allowed the character to get what she wanted in being able to profile Jamie. Doherty's performance was extremely intense due to the nature of the character that she was playing, but despite that intensity, there was confidence, believability, sympathy, and fear in knowing that she had to sit across from an evil human being like Jamie with the unpredictable nature that he had.
Oh. She's gonna be like, oh my God, he's not evil, he just murdered a girl for jelly.
The evil human being that is Jamie. Yikes. This is actually really tied to my very unpopular take, surprisingly. It's really comforting and easy, I think, to label an individual as evil. To be clear, the action that he did is unquestionably evil, right? The character murdered a girl. That's really bad. Just in case anyone's wondering, that is an evil action.
It's bad. What do you want me to say?
But I often feel frustrated in a really deep sense about how it's very easy to characterize people who do really bad things as evil in a way to shield ourselves from trying to understand the terrifying psychological similarities that we have to people who do really bad things. And this, like, to me, is really driven home. This is something that we talk about in psychology, and I'm coming from a psych perspective on this time and time again.
Tell me
right?
about it.
This is the Milgram's test. This is, if you don't know what the Milgram's test is, it's basically where they could get normal average citizens to deliver what was labeled as like killing levels of electrical volts to somebody who was just failing a test in another room because they were asked to do so, right? I think it's really, really important to understand the banality of how often evil occurs, right? Especially in a crime like this. This is a crime of passion, right? He gets really angry. He's a very angry young boy. I think one of the things that this episode highlights super well that we haven't really known yet is how angry and kind of explosively angry Jamie is, right? It highlights it being like, oh, this is a boy that I could see doing violence against a girl. Like, I can see it because he keeps on being explosively angry.
It's not a test, it's an experiment. Yeah. Let's keep going.
And at the same time, while what he did was an evil action, unquestionably, when we label this person as just evil, we now are no longer required to psychologically understand that individual whatsoever.
The thing is like I don't buy this bullshit that there's so much intuition pumping that goes into this, right? Where it's like, how could you possibly understand? How could you ever fathom doing this? You la. Like, I don't think that's true at all. I think that people, generally speaking, like outside of like really crazy shit, like I'm talking like Jeffrey Dahmer eating people. That one is inescapable to me. I'm like, I don't know about that one, dude. But like, you can look at people that do fucked up things and be like, oh, like, I don't agree with it, but I totally understand that. Like, if you have somebody who's in like an extreme domestic violence situation and they kill their abusive partner, you're not like, oh my God, how could this happen? Oh, it's a real head scratcher. It really makes you think. It's like, obviously, she was tired of getting hit in the fucking face. 1, 2, 3, okay? Or even when people look like back in history, like at really dark periods in history, okay? I truthfully don't think that there's like this huge leap in logic that people learn or they're taught or they're indoctrinated into believing things that are really fucked up, and they think that it puts them in a position of superiority over others, and that feels good, therefore they do it. Like, I don't think that that's this mind bretzel, like, fucking ayahuasca trip to, like, understand that, like, yes, in certain circumstances, you might do shit that you otherwise never would do. In the right circumstances, with the right environment, with the right set of factors, it's like, yeah, you could do something really fucking crazy, totally. I don't know, maybe this is just me, but I don't think that this is, like, super fucking far out there. This isn't like, well, I really need to think about that one. It's like, I don't know literally, I don't know what to say. Like, I completely understand why people voted for Donald Trump. I understand why. I'm not like, wow, how did this happen? I get it. I get it. Everybody was like, he's funny. He's hilarious. He mews very well. He does. He knows how to smize. Slay. He wants to fix the economy. Everybody's worried about the economy. He wants to fix immigration. Everybody's freaking the fuck out about immigration right now. He loves to talk shit. He says that he's going to do this. He says that he's going to do that. He's disliked by politicians. That's really appealing to people. They're like, oh my God, there's a reason that people don't like him. It's because he tells it how it is. Like, obviously, if you spend more than like 5 minutes thinking about these things critically, in my opinion, you're kind of like, well, this is kind of bullshit. Like, just look at the price of eggs. However, I'm not an idiot. I understand why this is appealing to people. And I don't have to do like a lot of legwork to understand why certain people believe certain things. Like, maybe this is like a dumb people thing. I don't know.
Or to confront the parts of us that if just enough wrong steps occur in our lives, we could be in that same position. This is also a concept in restorative justice. Yes, if you believe in rehabilitative justice or restorative justice, you basically can't really label most people evil. I would be willing to grant that true-born psychopaths are probably the only people that I'd be comfortable categorically labeling as evil. Right? Because there's nothing that...
You heard it here, guys. Hitler, not evil. Can you understand why Hitler did what he did? Everybody sit down. Everybody sit down, crisscross applesauce. Let's think about reasons why Hitler was evil. This is the plot of Wicked. Like, I don't care. I'm going to say that Hitler was evil. I don't care. Okay? I think that an evil person is like, I know how to fix the economy. Let's kill 11 million people. Like, I think that's evil. Like, I don't know what to say.
That can compel them to stop doing bad things except for like self-interest. But that's only because we don't have the technology or knowledge enough to fix that. I imagine that there's probably a brain thing going on with psychopaths that if like could be corrected or offset, I would feel differently about that person being evil. I just think functionally I treat psychopaths like, particularly like violent prone psychopaths as like true evil, right? Because rehabilitative justice doesn't work for them whatsoever. There's a Joker in all of us, just one bad. Well, the important part of like the Milgram experiment, because it came out of Nazi Germany, is just to understand that there is a Nazi in all.
Have you taken one psychology class? What do they assault you with in psychology classes? B.F. Skinner, Stanley Milgram in the Stanford Prison Experiment. Stanley Milgram was a U.S. psychologist from New York, and he was Jewish. Stanley Milgram was an American psychologist from New York who was Jewish. What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean, bro? What year were the experiments? Hang on really quick. Hang on. What year was it? I want to say it was in the 60s. It was 1961! Oh, the infamous year of the rise of the Third Reich, 1961. The year that Hitler conquered Europe, 1961. Oh my god. That horse must have kicked her really fucking hard in the head. Holy shit. Let's hear that one more time.
Joker and all of us just one bad. Well, the important part of like the Milgram experiment, because it came out of Nazi Germany, is just to understand that there is a Nazi in all of us. And if you aren't, and this is to be
There's a Nazi in all of us, you guys. There's a little Hitler. You guys know the picture of like the GPR image of Saddam Hussein where it's him like laying like this, and it's like the diagram where it shows where Saddam Hussein was in the bunker. There's a Hitler like that somewhere inside of you right now. It's like the little Hitler, and he's in you. He's inside of you. Did anybody comment? Did anybody tell her that that's not true? Did anyone tell her that? No one has said anything about this, you guys! You guys! She has a psychology degree, she doesn't even know! She doesn't even know! Oh my god. How do we move on? How do we move on from here?
Be clear, there are people who don't have a Nazi in them because they've done enough of the self-work to analyze themselves, to have a moral system that is born of their own thought, and therefore can resist.
I didn't do anything. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Oh, hey, I was informed that you may want to react to the jar call community members of ours gave us in the stream with you.
Resist evil when the banality of it pulls you in, right? Because there were Germans who resisted the Nazis. There were Germans who stood up against them. There were Germans who shielded and protected Jewish people. So of course this is true. But to be that person, there is some level of self-work and self-knowledge that has to occur. And so when you say that person's just evil, it's extremely concerning because it's like, have you done the work necessary to protect yourself from that same thing?
You guys, have you done the work to protect yourself from the evil of the tiny Hitler that lives inside of you? Have you done the work? Have you done the work to keep the tiny Hitler inside of you at bay?
Das Wave is a German movie, kind of about the same thing, that is really brilliant and kind of posing.
Das Wave. Das Wave. German movie. Oh, The Wave. It's The Wave. Oh, okay. It's based on Ron Jones' real-life experiment, The Third Wave. Let's see what this is. The Third Wave Experiment. Third Wave was an experimental movement created by the high school teacher Ron Jones in 1967. He taught his students about Nazi Germany. He decided to create a fictional social movement as a demonstration to appeal fascism. So it also is not about the Milgram experiments or the Stanford prison experiment. Interesting.
Movie, kind of about the same thing, that is really brilliant and kind of posing this question of basically being like, who are the people that can resist becoming evil in a banal, evil through a banal process? Who are the people that can resist becoming evil through banal processes? Because that's how most people become evil, is through super small little moments. Okay. It's called Das Wave. It's in German. If you ever want to watch it, it's older.
Can you just say The Wave? Das Wave. Das Volkswagen. Das Volkswagen go boom. Very cool.
We didn't know anything about Bryony, other than the profession that she did and the fact that she'd like to take things seriously. And I think it takes great skill to make the audience care for a character when there's no true backstory that's known.
True.
So I think Doherty's performance was what ultimately enabled that to cut through.
True!
What was on her face at the
sorry.
end, and the single tear that ran down it showed that emotional turmoil that she went through in the 5 sessions that she had with Jamie. Plus, I'd also say certain moments where she also shone was when Jamie was revealing what he could have done to Kate, and the room fell silent, and all we heard was her heartbeat and her breathing. The stillness on her face and body and the emotionless expression that she held actually spoke 1,000 words, and it was probably one of my favorite moments of Doherty's in this episode. Owen Cooper's performance as Jamie. Considering this was Owen Cooper's first ever acting role, and episode 3 was the first episode that was shot in the entirety of the show, his performance was absolutely class. Not only did we see innocent—
Wait, this was the first episode shot? That's crazy at an actor's level.
That's crazy, girl.
Like
Oh my god, that's crazy, isn't it? That's crazy.
Yeah, I was crazy back then.
he held. But by the closing moments of the episode, we saw the evil, toxic, murderous capability that he held within him due to the confrontation and the switch in personality that happened.
I literally feel like this is a movie reviewer who does not get movies. I feel like I'm listening to somebody being like,
tell me about it.
Man, I watched Everything Everywhere All at Once, and I realized, you know, what's really important? To work hard in life. And it's like,
has anyone ever said that about Everything Everywhere All at Once?
That's not the point of the movie.
I'll consider. Wait, hang on. Oh, that's right. We're talking about Everything Everywhere All at Once. Great movie, by the way.
So it's clear, this is not my takeaway from the movie at all, right? When I see, for example, her struggling, probably part of the brilliance is that I don't know entirely what I think the writer's doing. I do think the writer leans in the direction of what this person's saying about basically like a certain level of villainization of men, and particularly violent men or violent young boys. However, they really kept it neutral. For example, when the first time the boy erupts at her, he like gets in her face, he's really threatening, he throws a chair, he's really explosive. They showed her basically like tearing up and needing to step away. I feel a little bit odd about that as somebody who's worked with
I completely agree. Anybody that shows emotion, pussy, I agree.
Very violent, angry young boys before, and worked underneath and been like mentored by people who make this their profession, right? They're her. You know, I've followed these people and I've worked in these spaces because if you're doing forensic analysis, which this woman would be probably some level of a forensic clinical psychologist, young boys being violent who are incarcerated would not be this shocking, kind of like disgusting experience.
Again, we're missing a lot of context here because the violence and the reactivity specifically is used by a boy who killed a girl for rejecting him, one, and two is posturing in a misogynistic way and threatening violence towards a woman who is significantly his senior and a woman who is in a significant position of authority above him, which is not something that you see like they act towards males occasionally, right? So generally speaking, if you have somebody who is just violent and unruly, they will be violent and unruly towards anyone, okay? There is a specific fear, and Erudite should know this, for women who are targeted by men in violence. That is a very specific and unique kind of fear that is unique to women. So knowing that a woman who should be in a position of authority, who should be in a position of power, that should be somebody that is respected by the individual that they are interviewing, is threatened with violence by a known murderer of women. Yeah, that'd be kind of fucking scary. Yeah, that's completely understandable. And the other thing to be mindful of as well is that people that do this kind of work, this temperament, this bluntness, this lack of emotional reactivity has a natural end, okay? It does not matter how good somebody is at their job. How good somebody is with selective disassociation, where you can kind of just power down, let people say whatever the fuck they want to you, and then you just go right back to what you were doing, and it's water off a duck's back. There is a natural endpoint to that for everyone, okay? And it isn't like this moment of weakness. It is actually the correct thing to do. If there is a moment that you have where you're at that point where the reaction is coming, the best thing to do is to leave and to have that reaction not in the presence of the person that is trying to control or manipulate your reactivity. That's actually what you do. You don't stay there and white knuckle it. You have to go somewhere else and let that out, because that reactivity reinforces the aggression. For somebody who has worked with these kinds of individuals, and I have no reason to believe that we didn't, okay? I'm not saying that at all, but that's kind of like common etiquette in these kinds of spaces, okay?
For you. This is, thanks, I honey. This is like par for the course, right? When I've seen situations, for example, when we've been like in a lockup detention facility, one of the boys has a violent record, is threatening one of the staff, right, being really like aggressive and whatnot. It can be very scary in the moment, right? Obviously, it's scary to have somebody be physically threatening you. But the walk away emotions that most people in this field have isn't one of disgust. Most people who work in these spaces don't feel disgust for their...
It's disgusting when that violence is targeted specifically towards you. In the same way that you would understand that a person of color who was interviewing somebody who was racist for competency, that there would be a level of disgust with the way that they were treated violently by that person because they're targeting their demographic, right? There's a reason that there is a specific kind of vitriol and like violence and just like really disgusting feel when you have somebody who is attacking you based on who you are as a person. There's a reason that there are certain slurs that you can't say on certain websites and what have you, and it's because it's targeted. If you are a woman and you are interviewing somebody who is a misogynistic killer of women, that disgust factor is almost instinctual. And for the most part, it is turned off. I would say that any time in this whole episode, again, I actually don't know if she watched the show or not, in the entire episode that she is in his presence, she does not show that to him. She might step away and do that. She might do that after he's left the room. But in his presence, she does not show that. And that is something that is exceptionally hard to detach, is if somebody is coming for you in a very particularly pointed, aggressive, and vitriolic way, there is that disgust. Because if somebody was to say really fucked up shit to me, it's hard to detach that disgust reaction where it's like, you're a disgusting person for thinking this. You're a disgusting person for believing these kinds of things. Yes, obviously, that is a natural reaction. What's important is that reaction is tempered and that you don't show that to the person that's trying to get that reaction to you, which she does not do in the show, mind you.
Young male clients. And to be clear, if you do, I'll try to, didn't help. If they do, it's probably not the right industry for them, right? So like her ending scene where she has what I would agree is a look of disgust was actually kind of disappointing, in large part because I feel like it perpetuates this idea that young men who are violent in this way are like wholly unredeemable, which I think is the...
Somebody can be disgusting while being redeemable. I think that people that are like white supremacists are disgusting. I think they have a disgusting belief system to think that they're superior to anybody else. I think that's disgusting. But I'm not dumb enough to think that people can't unlearn that trajectory. I'm not dumb enough to think that that person is forever going to hold these views, right? I'm not dumb enough to think that, because there are plenty of people that are indoctrinated into belief systems and come out the other side and they're completely changed and they don't believe those things anymore, and that's awesome. That still does not mean that I cannot be disgusted by their beliefs, their ideas, their laws or whatever the fuck they follow, right? I can still say that I think that that's disgusting, and I can still have a disgust react. I think that it's absolutely fucking disgusting that those taquitos have been sitting there this whole time. They're probably cold as fuck. They're probably gross and soggy. She's not dipping them in anything either. There's no salsa. There's no guac. Okay? I think that's disgusting. Could she learn how to eat a taquito appropriately? Certainly. Who can't? Who amongst us cannot learn new eating habits, okay? I'm still disgusted. That doesn't take away anything from that, right?
I don't think that the kid in the show is acting. What? Yes, he is. I don't know if the idea that young violent men are irredeemable is the type of judicial and societal response that we should have, or idealize, or think is the right response, right?
If anything, you can argue the complete opposite here, because what is this? God, it makes me really upset when people, like, can't think critically about media. Media analysis is dead and we've killed her. We've killed her. Okay. Something that is important to be mindful of, again, is that this is a television show. And part of the purpose of this show is to conflict the viewer into how much empathy is appropriate. Okay? Because there are parts in the third episode where he is talking to the psychologist, and it's very obvious that this kid has never had positive validation for anything. I suck at sports. I'm ugly. Girls don't want to talk to me. I don't have any friends. I'm not popular. And even at the end, when the psychologist says, this is our last interview, this is the last time that I'm going to see you, he's like, but do you like me? Like, do you think that do you like me as a person? Like, not in a weird way, but like, do you like me? Like, did you like spending time with me? Like, say one nice thing about me. That's fucked up. That's fucked up that this 13-year-old kid has never had anybody say anything positive about him. That's really fucking sad, right? And also you see the way that it's affecting his family as well, right? His family didn't do anything, right? But his dad's van gets tagged. His sister's getting picked on. The neighbors are all making fun of him and, watching them all the time. They're worried about losing business because the dad has like his own business and shit like that. You see how it's negatively affecting his family. You hear about how all these girls were just dogging on him all the time. They were calling him ugly, calling him an incel, saying that he's, disgusting and gross. They would rather like throw up than talk to him, like shit like that. So that's like the point, right? Is that we're contrasting this. We're testing the viewer's metric for like, how bad do you really feel for this person? If I show you enough tragedy in someone's life, how much empathy can you give them? How much forgiveness can you give them? At what point does it stop being about retribution? And when does it start becoming true punishment? True eye for an eye. Okay. What is justice? What does that mean? Who has to suffer? Who wins because of the punishment, the atonement for the sin? Who wins if the victim is dead? Okay. These are all core conflicts in this series, right? Because she even says in the interview directly, he's going on, he's like, oh, well, she was a bitch, she was a whore, they were passing around pictures of her tits, like, but her tits weren't even that nice. And she asked him directly, she's like, she's dead. What does your judgment of her change? Do you think that like talking down about her changes the fact that she's dead right now? Really important question. That's like the purpose of the show, is to juxtapose this kid's actions, which are reprehensible, an evil action to do, killing somebody, ending their life because she rejected you. That's incredibly fucked. But also, this is a kid. This is a kid that's never felt validation. This is a kid who thinks truly that girls are always gonna like gag when they look at him. They're like, he's so ugly, gross, disgusting, loser, freak, virgin. And then his family gives him little to no support. He doesn't have a lot of friends. That's the point. That's the point. The point is to put the viewer in this weird spot where it's like, wow, where do I fall on this? This is an interesting question. That's the point. That's the point.
The psychologist walking away, feeling disgust, and this movie brain pilot guy feeling that Jamie is evil, and that it was so satisfying and, and harrowing to see her reaction and be like, oh yeah, he's just so evil, is basically the opposite of what we need when it comes to rehabilitative justice, right? If most of the crime is done by young angry men, which it is, particularly young angry men who are on drugs or alcohol.
S'ha donatet $5 through Superchat. Peuple like this don't bet choose for story. They just hunt them for and think they can turn into a political hot take on the internet.
Does anybody just watch shit because they like it anymore? Anybody? Anybody? Can we not just like watch a show and have a good time, guys? Can we not just have fun? No fun allowed is like the new metric. Oh, it's so fucking annoying, dude. I don't disagree. Thank you for the $5, Sai. Yeah. And true predators rely on empathy in order to perpetuate harm. And there's something that I again want to point out, because I'm right about this. I'm right about this, okay? I'm correct about this, and you'll never change me otherwise, okay? Because I am right, okay? Send me a peer-reviewed study that shows me that I'm wrong, okay? You can watch this kid do this in this show. Obviously, it's the show. It's dramatized. It's a dramatic retelling or whatever the fuck, okay? People do actions, any action in life, for 5 reasons and 5 reasons alone. Anything that you ever do in your entire life will satiate one of 5 needs: attention, escape, tangibles. What did I say? Attention, escape, tangibles, control, and self-stimulatory. So, self-stimulatory, I'm hungry, I eat. I have an itch, I scratch it. I have to sneeze, I sneeze. Attention, positive or negative. Somebody pays attention to me. Somebody gives me the time of day. Escape, I want to get out of a situation, I want to get out of a feeling, okay? Tangibles, anything that I can have. My phone, a beer, my computer, my car, a cigarette, any of those things. And control. I want to control a situation. I want to be the one that's calling the shots. I don't want people telling me what to do. Anything that you ever do in your life is going to satiate all 5 of these, or multiple. One at a time, can be 2, 3, 4, 5, all of them. Doesn't matter. That is everything that you are ever going to do in your entire life, okay? What people do, and the way that you learn how to get these things, is what you do, and it's literally like a slot machine. You pull it, this reaction, okay, that doesn't work. I'm going to try pulling it this way. This doesn't work. I'm going to try pulling it this way. That worked. I'm going to write that down. Okay? So you can see this in really little kids. Okay? A little kid wants a candy bar at the store. No, Timmy, we have food at home. You don't need a candy bar. Throw yourself on the floor. Kick it. Oh, fucking God. It's like, oh my God, Timmy, don't freak out. Let's buy you the candy bar. What does that kid learn? I get candy by freaking the fuck out at the grocery store because mom is embarrassed. Okay? That's what the kid learns. Next time you go to the store, Mom, can I have a candy bar? No, Timmy, we have food at home. Timmy, this is ridiculous. Get up. I'm not getting you a candy bar today. That didn't work. Something's off here. I'm going to continue to escalate. Now, I'm going to bite Mom. What the fuck? Stop. What are you doing, Timmy? Jesus Christ, go pick out a candy bar. You learn. Okay, the more and more and more and more I act, I can get what I want. That is how everyone learns. Manipulative people, 9 times out of 10, are not intentionally manipulative. It is how they have learned to control a situation, get attention, or get out of something. That's almost always what it is, okay? So, when you watch this episode, You can watch this kid in real time if you don't believe me. And again, it's a show. It's a dramatization, blah, 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 blah. Watch the show. You watch this kid cycle through everything that he has ever tried in his entire life to try and get the resolution that he wants out of this. He tries kissing her ass and making small talk. He tries complimenting her. He tries threatening her. He tries posturing. He tries feeling sad about himself. He tries compliment baiting. He tries asking for hot chocolate. He tries guilt tripping her. He tries freaking the fuck out. It doesn't matter. Okay, he's kind of going through the little itinerary of things in the past that have worked for him. And you can watch people do this if they get upset enough. You can watch them literally try everything that they've tried before in the past to get a need met. Okay, and that is just fucking true. Okay, and you can literally watch him do it in the episode. Obviously, again, it's dramatized. You can literally watch it in the episode. I would highly recommend it because you can watch people do this. Very truly manipulative people are very rare. People that are intentionally doing this. 9 times out of 10, people learn if I do this, I get this. This plus this equals 2. 2 plus 2 equals 4. That's how people learn. You just are rewiring and wiring and rewiring and wiring your brain to figure out what is going to ping your dopamine response. What is going to get me what I want. That's all you're doing, okay? And when people are pushed far enough, you can watch them cycle through every single one of those things in rapid succession. And that's exactly what happens in this episode. Write that down.
The way that we engage in rehabilitative justice for these young men isn't to call them evil and to view them as disgusting. It's to have empathy for why they're so angry and then teach them healthy outlets for that anger. In large part because we understand, for example, that the way that young men...
Remember what I said earlier when we were talking about laxity, okay? You can train animals, you can train dolphins, you can train fish, you can train butterflies, and you can certainly train human beings.
Hilarious.
And boys in general tend to express things like anxiety and depression is through irritability, anger, and anhedonia, right? We know that when men and boys are angry, again...
Have I been saying that word wrong my whole life? Is this another word I've been saying wrong? Please tell me. Please tell me. I'm saying this wrong. Because this is going to be so embarrassing if I... It's Adonia, right?
Anhedonia.
Oh my god. This is so fucking embarrassing!
Anhedonia.
I'm gonna fucking cry! Oh my god! I've been saying Adonia.
Anhedonia.
I was missing the N. I was missing the N.
Anhedonia.
God, that's fucking embarrassing. I say Adonia. I just don't pronounce the N. Because I can't read. I'm dyslexic. I just wasn't saying the N. Alright, guys. I'll see you next week, okay? Goodbye. It just means loss of pleasure or joy. It's like it's different than depression. It's just like specifically like a lack of joy in tasks that you previously enjoyed doing. So usually it's really common in like seasonal depression. That's what it's most common in, but that's really sad, guys. That's actually really sad. I'm well, embarrassing. Anyway.
Again, at an aggregate level, they're not going to express their anxiety and depression.
Wait, did she say something else?
We know that when men and boys are angry, again, at an aggregate level, they're not going to express their...
Is she saying aggregate?
...ability, anger, and anhedonia, right? We know that when men and boys are angry, again, at an aggregate level, they're not...
Okay. It was just because it was fat.
Not going to express their anxiety and depression as like crying all the time, being sad, laying in bed, and like not being able to like get out of bed and worrying all the time about like what their friends think. What they're going to have is constant irritability, lots of anger issues, punching the walls, destroying things, and anhedonia. They can't get pleasure out of anything, right? These are the signs of anxiety and depression in men, which is why I'm really disappointed with the way that psychology typically evaluates anxiety and depression, because it makes it like this woman issue when I am at this point, I don't even know if I buy that at all. Not only does it do this shitty thing where it perpetuates this idea that women are just like more neurotic and more anxious and sad, but it also then creates this like dishonest understanding of the way that sadness and anxiety expresses in men and young boys, and we misdiagnose it. Because in general, we think anger is a very bad thing. We don't like that emotion. We don't empathize with angry people very well. We empathize with sad, cute, scared things, right? If I'm anxious and being irritable, nobody thinks I'm cute. They think I'm a bitch, right? When I'm anxious and crying in a sad small bean, everyone wants to protect me. This is like obviously true. This is like the meme of white women.
I have like the complete opposite reaction, to be honest with you. I would rather deal with somebody who's angry than somebody who's crying. Maybe that's just like a me thing, but that's just me personally, I guess.
Tears. And so
this reminds me one time when I think I was very, I must have been like 11 or something. Somebody told me they were like, anger is a masking emotion. Like, no, sometimes I'm actually just mad. No, it's a masking emotion. What do you really feel? I feel mad. That's what I feel. I feel mad. That anger is a perfectly like acceptable emotion to exist in isolation. Like, it's not always it can be, especially reactive anger. Like, maybe I'm not mad. Maybe I'm just disappointed that somebody canceled plans with me. So maybe that's manifesting as anger. That's reasonable. But to pretend that anger is always a masking emotion is not true. But
the way that they had this woman be tearful twice and then like look at him when he leaves with like sheer disgust felt very detached from the reality of the work that most clinical psychologists are doing. Most clinical psychologists that work with forensic.
Again, if you're a psychologist who's black and your job is to evaluate somebody who's like a violent neo-Nazi or a white supremacist, I think it's reasonable that that person would feel disgust. Would they emote that disgust to whoever they're working with? No, not at all. Of course not. That's not appropriate. That's like well outside of your duties and your responsibilities. Like that would be inappropriate, right? To kind of express that in that situation. However, it's reasonable that that person has that reaction as long as they like don't emote that or like show that or share that with that person. Yeah, that's actually completely fucking normal. Like, that would be a disgusting environment to be in, as somebody who is like a minority and a victim of a certain, hyper-specific kind of violence, rhetoric, vitriol, whatever the fuck. Like, it's fair that you would be disgusted by that. As long as that doesn't bleed into, like, the way that you treat that individual or your practice or anything like that, then who gives a fuck? Yes, it is disgusting that some people think negatively of you just because of, like, your race or something like that. That's disgusting. That is a disgusting belief system. Yes, I don't understand.
So typically young boys, they don't hate their clients. They don't think their clients are disgusting. And it makes me worried when I see like coverage like this saying like, it was perfect. It was so satisfying to, what did he say?
In the 5 sessions that she had here, that to cut through, the sheer disgust that was on her face at the end and the single tear that ran down it showed that emotional.
Right.
I also don't even know if I personally would not characterize any of the emoting to be disgust either. I wouldn't characterize it like that at all. She was like, releasing all of the emotions that she was kind of bottling up while she's having this really difficult conversation. But whatever.
I don't know if I'd say that was sheer disgust. I feel like Brain Pilot is putting his own emotional reaction to his feelings about Jamie on her. She's clearly distressed. And very, very disturbed by what he said, unquestionably. I don't know if I'd say that she's just got sheer obvious disgust, but it's concerning to me that this is such a large takeaway from this episode, when in fact, what I saw is a clinical psychologist who was stressed, very worried about the fact that this young boy held all these beliefs. Because at one point he goes like, "You're not the queen," right? He's very kind of aggressively misogynistic at a couple of times, very much doing weird power games with her throughout. He does things like trying to embarrass her. For example, like he says, like after he scares her, she sits close and like confronts him with some of his comments towards the girl, Katie, the girl that he killed. And he tries to embarrass her, for example, which is, just so it's clear, the writing on the boy side, super, super well done and accurate to like what an angry young boy looks like, right? A very, like when I say an angry young boy, I mean like a forensically level angry young boy, like a violent, does assaults, in this case, does a murder young boy. Doing power games. Like when I worked at the lockup, I remember everything that I saw in this. I was like, I remember my clients doing this. I remember, for example, there was this one time, it was my biggest pet peeve. God, I fucking hated this, where my young male clients, when they were mad at me, they'd go like this. Or even sometimes when they weren't mad at me, they just go like this. And they'd be like, "See, you flinched." And I'm like, "Yeah, of course. You were pretending like you might punch me. I'm not stupid. Of course I flinched." Drove me crazy, by the way. So fucking annoying. But they were like, and it's like, "Bro, you're fucking stupid. If I ran at you with a shovel and pretended to hit you in the face, you flinched. Yeah, no shit." Drove me crazy. Okay. Right. So like,
oh, sorry, I was coughing. I was muted. I was going to say something, but then I decided it was an inside thought. So I'm just going to keep that one to myself, okay?
those behaviors, I think, were really accurate, really, really well done. The power games as well, of being like, "What, you think you're the queen?" Those like misogynistic power games, so common. Again, as somebody who's like worked with forensic boys. Did you ever do it back? No. Are you kidding me? That is just setting myself up for an assault, like unquestionably, right? And again, the boys going like this to me, it's bad of them to do that. And also, like the boy who would do that to me, he was sexually assaulted chronically from the ages of 4 till 10.
I have the personal ick. I don't know if anybody else feels this way. I think that it's pretty fucking weird to like share this stuff about like former people. I think it's different if you're like a surgeon and you're like, I had a client that had to get like a total knee replacement. Okay, that's one thing. I had to do a complete bilateral hemispheric neuropathy panopticon surgery. Okay, cool. I guess. I think that sounds nice or cool. I had to do a complete heart transplant yesterday. Oh, very cool. Thanks for letting me know. I had this patient come in and he had 36 eggs stuffed up his ass. Could you believe it? Whoa! What the fuck are you talking about right now? Oh, I have this client that's been raped 400 times. It's like, what? Why are you telling me that? What are you talking about? I feel like that's a little different. Oh my god, I had a patient come in today with a fever of 110. Can you believe it? That's insane. Thankfully, they lived. Oh, okay, cool. I had a patient come in and he had 42 baby dolls in his stomach that he ate yesterday. What the fuck, dude? Why? Like, I think that there's like a difference here. I feel like there's like kind of a difference here. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. I think that maybe we should like keep those things to ourselves. Like, and again, I think there's like a difference between like I worked with this client and he made me this really cool picture. Ah, very nice. I worked with this client who killed 47 cats. Maybe we don't talk about that. I don't know. It's very weird to me. I don't know. Just my opinion. That's just my opinion. That's my opinion. Okay.
He was, I'm not sure what caused this, but he had a severe brain injury, basically from pretty early on that left like a large portion of his frontal lobe missing. He basically, because of how like violent and outburst he was functionally homeless. He was technically in a group home, but he could never stay. He got kicked out all the time. He was in and out of jail, in and out of drug rehab. He was addicted to meth, right? And so it was bad of that boy to do this. It's wrong of this young boy to kill a girl, obviously. But we're never going to solve the problem of like young male violence if our response to them is, you're just evil, unforgivable, and
that's totally what she said in the show.
Disgusting. That's not what rehabilitative justice is. That's just not. This is what I talked about before. Empathy is really fun when it's a cute small bean who's just crying in her room or his room. Empathy is really hard when it's a kid who's flinching and trying to pretend to hit you, or who's calling you a bitch, or who's being nasty, right? Empathy is really hard in those situations. And empathy doesn't mean telling the person, it's okay that you killed the girl. No, it's not. That's not empathy. Empathy is saying what you did was deeply wrong and you will live with it for the rest of your life. And you are going to be buried with shame for most of it. And also, there is a path to redemption if you're willing to take it and walk.
I think, again, part of rehabilitative justice is atonement, right? So, and I think that realistically, empathy also stops at infantilization as well. It's just a fundamental misunderstanding of like what this would look like in practicality. If we want to do like true rehabilitation, there has to be like she's right. Redemption is a part of that, but redemption has to be sought. Redemption has to be earned. So if those are things that are going to be on the table, and we're talking specifically the example that is in Adolescence, what is it? 6 months after this murder takes place. And this kid is essentially still justifying why he decided to kill this girl. That isn't somebody who's ready for rehabilitation or reintegration, right? Like, if we believe in the principles of restorative justice, that people can learn from their mistakes, they can atone for their sins, and they can reintegrate into society, that has to be earned, and it has to be wanted by the individual that has done something wrong. And DZ is correct. By the end of this episode, in episode 3, he still has not admitted that he was the one that did it, even though there's a video recording of him doing it, right? So a big part of it is that he's not even willing to admit what he's done. He does, I didn't do it, but if I did, she was picking on me, and she was kind of a whore. And she rejected me. She really hurt my feelings anyway. So, like, even if I did, I didn't, by the way. Even if I did, I mean, she was, and there's several parts in the episode too where he's like, you agree she was being a bitch, right? She's an evil bitch, right? You would agree. Like, you would describe this behavior as bitch behavior. He's literally trying to get the therapist to like call her a bitch, to like validate his feelings of feeling justified in committing these acts. So, I mean, generally, I don't disagree that there should be paths of rehabilitation, reintegration in certain instances, but that has to be earned. That has to be something that is wanted, and then it has to be something that is worked towards and something that is earned. It is not just immediately given. It is something that has to be worked towards, right? And there still has to be some kind of penance done. There has to be some kind of consequence for engaging in things that are egregious crimes, trespasses against other individuals. So think about crimes like murder, assault, rape, things like that. It's not just like, sorry, and we're like, all right, bud, get back out there, tiger. It's like there has to be some kind of consequence, whether it's a loss of certain privileges, whether it's a loss of certain rights, whether it's a deprivation of, living in society for a certain amount of time. Like, all of these things have to be done. It's not an immediate, like, oh, you guys, did you even read Hitler's apology note? Did you even watch Hitler's ukulele apology video before you guys decided to get mad at him? He plays the ukulele really good, guys. Hang on now. As people on the left, guys, like, you know what I mean? Like,
and walk that path, and it'll be really hard. And I guess depending on your relationship, and as much as I can be, I want to be alongside you on that pathway to redemption, right? That's what empathy is. Okay.
The turmoil that she went through in the 5 sessions that she had with Jamie. Plus, I'd also say,
holy fuck, you guys. I'm sorry, I keep pausing Andy.
the moments where she also shone was when Jamie was revealing what he could have done to Kate, and the room fell silent, and all we heard was her heartbeat and her breathing. The stillness on her face and body and the emotionless expression that she held actually spoke 1,000 words, and it was probably one of my favorite moments of Doherty's in this episode.
Well, yeah, because the reactivity is going to serve as a reinforcement. Like, reinforcement isn't just like verbal, right? It's not like a verbal reaction. Reactivity isn't just, responding verbally to somebody doing this or whatever the fuck. It can be your facial expressions. It can be your posture. It can be like your body language. It can be movements of your eyes. It can be anything, right? Like, you have to be really careful if you're in a situation where reactivity can be seen as reinforcement, because you don't want to accidentally like cue off that you're bothered by something, because that can open an entirely different can of worms that you weren't even ready to fucking open. That's very important. So yeah, there's a part in here where he was like, I could have raped her. I could have touched her. I could have, gone under her clothes, but I didn't do that because I'm a good guy. I didn't do that. Other guys would have done that, but I didn't do that. What reaction would we have preferred here? What reaction would we have preferred? Ew! Or, you're right, that's so noble of you. No, the best reaction is no reaction. What do you even say to that? Nothing. That's validation seeking. Agree with me. I was good. What I did wasn't that bad, right? We're seeking that validation. That reactivity gives a reaction. My reaction to somebody saying that to me tells them definitively yes or no what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling. And as an evaluator, that's never a position that you want to be in, right?
Cooper's performance as Jamie got in the innocence in the boy at the start with the childlike attitude that he held, but by the closing moments of the episode, we saw the evil, toxic, murderous capability that he held.
Why are we jumping around so much?
Sociopaths can't feel shame. You can't guilt trip them with some empathy sobbing. I'm sorry. I don't know what empathy sobbing is, but just so it's clear, okay? If somebody's telling you their life story about their abuse, and it's really sad and hard, and your response while they're telling you about this tragedy is to start fucking crying and needing to be comforted, that's not empathy. That's not empathy. Might be sympathy.
Obviously.
That's not empathy. And
obviously,
it's also stupid because it just makes them have to take care of you. This is like the most classic like dynamic. Like, I know so many people that have really difficult relationships with like emotionally tiring people, because every time they talk about their own personal problems, the other person gets so upset that they feel like they have to console them, which is a very exhausting. So I don't know what you're talking about with this empathy sobbing thing, but nobody's talking about this. I at no point have said that the boy who flinched and punched at me, who by the way, I was one of the only staff that could empathize with him because I don't know.
Where do you think the value that male violence has
I was built different, guys.
provided in human history plays into this? And do you see any value in looking up to positive violence like superheroes?
I do. To go back, sorry, I wasn't the only one that could empathize with him. I was the only one that for whatever reason could get through to him. Mostly, weirdly enough.
Blanket advice. Blanket advice. Do you ever have a job where you have to work with difficult people? If you ever have a job where you have to work with difficult people, this is true for COs. This is true for people who work in, psych wards, state hospitals. This is true for people who work in rehab, substance abuse. This is true for people who work in, what's the word I'm looking for? Halfway houses, things like that. Being a favorite is actually a bad thing. Okay? Being a favorite in those environments is actually not good. That means that you have weak boundaries. That's what that means. If you ever find yourself in a situation like that, like if you're like a prison guard, you happen to be all of the prisoners' favorite, that's a bad thing. That's not a good thing. You don't want to be the favorite of incarcerated criminals. That's actually bad. That's a sign that you're doing something wrong. Okay? Yeah. It's always kind of like a pretty big, like, when people that work in these kinds of environments, when they are the favorite, that's something that should raise an eyebrow. There's not a reason that you should be a favorite, especially if you're somebody who's working in like, and to my understanding, if you're working in an environment for like troubled youth, you should not want to be the favorite. Okay, because if that's the environment you're working in, you're not there to play mom or dad. You're not there to play big brother, big sister. You're there to facilitate, like an environment where they can learn like appropriate skills, where they can learn, how to act appropriately, how they can learn to manage their feelings. Maybe they even need to learn how to, like readjust to re-entering society, blah, blah, blah. You don't want to be the favorite person in that environment. That means that you're doing something wrong, truthfully.
Because he had like this massive blow up at me, was being a fucking asshole. And I basically started like cracking in my voice a little bit. And I was like, and the whole week I'd been kind to him, except for when he was being a dick. And then I was like firm with him, obviously, and like sent him to his room. But other than that, I would play games with him. I would just like treat him like normal. And I didn't go around like correcting his language all the time. But I started cracking. And I was like, bro, I just need you to go to bed. Like, you have to go to bed. This is how this works. This is my job. I understand that you're like scared and you don't like to go bed by to your own room by yourself. I get it. I understand that. But you have to go anyways. And he just like softened. And he was like, yeah, I am really scared. And I was like, I know. And he was like, can I at least like leave my door open because they have to keep their doors closed? And I was like, tell you what, I will sit outside your door that's open and I will play you. I'll like read, I think I read him a book. And I was like, I'll read you a book. And all the other kids, I let the kids all crack their doors. I'll read you a book until you like are reasonably falling asleep or my shift ends. And then I'm going to close the door. And he's like, sure, deal. We did that. And from then on, it was literally crazy. He would just listen, right? And so I'm not saying that everyone has to do that. I'm not saying that everyone has to go to that extent. You just can't be the one adding on top and pointing out the kid that's like threatening to punch me or whatever and be like, you're evil. There's no redemption for you, except for you.
That's totally right. Your options are no boundaries or literally fist fight them. Those are your options. You're evil and you're going to hell, or do whatever the fuck you want. Those are your two options. This is yeah. If somebody says you don't have to follow the rules, one, that means I know the rules aren't set in stone. Rules don't mean shit, right? You don't have to follow the rules with me, but I'll make exceptions. Okay, so the rules are bullshit. You guys have discretion. I can do whatever the fuck I want then, is what I'm hearing from that. Two, I hear that I'll listen to you, everybody else can fuck off. That triangulates people that work at those facilities against each other. Everyone has worked a job where there is one person that fucking ruins it for everybody else, and this is the temperament that will do that, right? So-and-so lets me do blah, blah, blah. I don't like you because you don't let me do blah, blah, blah. Therefore, I'm going to target you. Especially if you work at a facility where people are violent. That is the last kind of environment you want to create. I'm not going to listen to you. I'm only going to listen to Janet because Janet lets me do whatever the fuck I want. You, Sarah, I'm going to come over there and punch you in the fucking face because you won't let me watch TV for another hour. Fuck you, Sarah. Ah! That's a really good environment. That's a really good idea. That certainly teaches boundaries, rules, rigidity, expectations. Yes, certainly. That's a good idea.
There's no redemption for you, Freya. You will never have my taquitos ever again. You're a big bad girl who's naughty and deserves no taquitos.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't give dogs taquitos, though.
Empathy is fine unless it ever amounts to empathy is just always fine. What's not fine is enabling, but these are not the same thing. Do not equate these two things. Hi, Nina. Thanks for the raid. Thanks for the raid, Nina. Hi, sorry, I'm so sorry you raided earlier and I didn't notice. Therapist shouldn't think I want to help this person. Instead, they think, can this person really be helped? Zed Snapper, you have no idea about mental health. Please stop talking about it. You don't know what you're talking about. The therapist, you have no idea about earlier and I didn't notice. Therapist shouldn't think I want to help this person. Instead, they think, can this person really be helped? Zed Snapper, you have no idea about.
That's certainly a question. That's certainly a question at the very least worth considering. Crazy question. Crazy question. I don't know if it's different in Canada. It might be different in Canada. In Canada. Psychiatrists do medication management. Therapists and psychologists do like mental health, right? If you're a therapist or a counselor or a psychologist or whatever, and you have somebody that has drug-induced psychosis, can you help that person? If you have somebody who comes to you for help and they're unmedicated and schizophrenic, can you help that person? If you have someone who has therapy-resistant depression, it's a chemical imbalance in the brain, can you help that person? If you have somebody who has a really severe eating disorder because of food allergies, like they're malnourished, they're really picky about what they eat, they're really scared to eat certain things because of like very serious health concerns or whatever, can you help that person? These are important questions, yes. Right? Like I feel like that is something that could be asked and considered, certainly, because anything other than that is kind of like grandiose, right? Because what is within your scope of practice as well is a question that needs to come. Can I actually help this person? That's a really important one too. Say that you're somebody who specializes in substance use, and you have somebody who comes to you for something completely unrelated. Are you able to help that person? That's an important question. What if you are somebody who comes from a spiritual background? If you're somebody who provides like spiritual counseling, what if you have a client who has a different spiritual practice than you? Are you going to be able to help that person? Are you going to be able to be productive with that person? What if you're somebody who does like CBT? What if you specialize in CBT and you have somebody that comes to you that fucking hates CBT and refuses to do it? Can you be helpful with that person? What if you have somebody that comes to you that has an inherent bias towards the kind of person that you are? Say, like the example that we used earlier, say that you're a person of color and you have somebody who wants to work through their racial prejudices. Can you help that person? Are you able to set aside your biases to help that person in a productive way? It's cognitive behavioral therapy. Pretend that you're a woman and you have a client that comes to you who is a self-identified incel and wants to work on that. Are you able to help that person? Am I going to be productive in helping this person resolve their issues? That is a completely fair fucking question to ask. Pretend if you had a dream that you could if you had a dream that you could do anything. Like it's just something that this is like very grandiose, because realistically there is everyone that works in any kind of practice is going to have like something that they can do and something that they can't. Something they're really good at, something that they don't know anything about. Like, that's a really fair fucking question to ask. Can I even help this person? That's a really good fucking question, I think. That's actually a really good place to start. I think that's a really good place to start. Because I think that in general, as well, in mental health, and even with like doctors, like medical doctors as well, sometimes you're just a bad match with somebody, right? Like, I've had therapists that I don't get along with at all. And it's not their fault. It doesn't mean that they're not good at their job, that they don't have a good skill set, that they should lose their job or anything like that. But we just like did not get along, right? And same thing with doctors, right? Like, just because maybe my doctor is like a huge fucking asshole and we don't get along well, that doesn't mean that this guy is like a shitty doctor. And that's especially true with any time that you're working with other human beings and you're providing like a social service, right? So think even like case managers, social workers, what's the word I'm looking for? Like investigators for what's the word that like CPS and APS investigators, like shit like that. Like sometimes you can just have a bad pairing and that you aren't going to be able to help this person in the way that you think you can. Maybe you get off on the wrong foot. Maybe you butt heads. Maybe you've got political disagreements. Maybe you just don't fucking vibe. And maybe it's better for Susie to help this person instead of you. If you consider that to be like a fucking ego blow, if it really bothers you so much to ask, can I help this person in the way that they need help? If asking yourself that question means you don't know anything about mental health, you're in the wrong fucking field. Because like, that is part of being a human. There are plenty of people that I don't like at all, but they didn't do anything. We just don't get along. And that's okay. That doesn't mean that they're Hitler. That doesn't mean that they're fucking Mussolini. That doesn't mean they're possessed by a demon. It just means we don't get along. That's what that means, okay? And that's fine. And especially if you work in social services, there are going to be people that you don't really jive with, and you might not be able to help them in the way that you think that you can, just by virtue of not really getting along very well. And that's okay. I'm not liking the energy that we've created in the studio, guys.
About mental health, please stop talking about it. You don't know what you're talking about. A therapist's first question to themselves shouldn't be, is this client worthy? Okay, that is not the
That's not what was asked. Let's go back one more time, because that's not what was asked.
So sorry you rated earlier and I didn't notice. Therapists shouldn't think I want to help this person. Instead they think, can this person really be helped? Zed Snapper?
Can this person really be helped? That's part of it. But let's interpret this in good faith for like 1 second. Can this person even be helped? Can this person be helped by me? Can this person be helped in general? Can this person be helped by this service? Can this person be helped by that service? Can this person be helped by a doctor? Can this person be helped by a fucking demonologist, by a priest, by an exorcism? These are fair questions. These are fair questions to ask. Can this person even be helped? What if you have she said earlier that she believes in natural-born psychopaths. Can a natural-born psychopath be helped? Is that not an important question to ask? Perhaps this person is a natural-born psychopath and they cannot be helped by our own understanding of what a natural-born psychopath is? Hello?
You have no idea about mental health? Please stop talking about it. You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, dumb fuck.
A therapist's first question to themselves shouldn't be, is this client worthy? Okay, that is not the starting question from mental health work at all. Oh, you put Terrace on Freya's taquitos? Yeah, 200%, and she can't pay up.
Due to the confrontation and the switch in personalities that happened several times. It genuinely felt...
Oh, shit. Can you send it to me?
Oh my God. Perfect time to stop watching this. Wow. Cucked by Nick again. Perfect. Oh, thank you, Nick. Thank you for your service. Oh my God. Yeah, I'm not going to watch that whole video. You can't make me. You can't make me. DZ, how long did you make it? That's how long I was going to make it. That's how long I made it. I made it a little bit longer than you, I think. But either way, yeah, I don't really have a lot to say on that. I think that I said a lot. So take all that with a grain of salt, I suppose.